Hello! Konnichiwa! This week we are back to talking about another of my favorite things in the whole wide world, and that thing is of course traveling. Perhaps some of you might be looking for travel ideas, or perhaps you have wanted to travel to this particular destination all your life. And by this particular destination, I mean of course, Japan. It is not uncommon to experience a sort of fascination with this incredible place, and rightly so, because it is one of the most distinctive places, also known as the land of the rising sun. For somebody who has spent their entire life in the West, Japan will certainly seem different to anything they'll have experienced before. This was definitely the case for me, the only exception to that being Japan's capital city, Tokyo. Even though elements of it and of life here are starkly Japanese, in some parts of the city it would be quite easy to think that one is elsewhere in the world. Naturally, the kanji, hiragana and katakana, the characters used in written Japanese, would probably give one a hint as to where one is. But the cement, the high buildings, the cars coming and going can seem somewhat similar to the ones one might find in places like London or New York or what have you. One thing that was very different in Tokyo from those Western cities that I've just mentioned though was, well, just how clean everything was. There are very few street bins in Japan. Now that is a fact. And yet, in 5 days that we were there, I have not seen so much as a piece of paper on the ground. Not to mention the trains, where the floors are so clean, you'd honestly consider having a lie down on them. Please don't do that, ever. I don't think the locals or anyone really would appreciate that much. Anyway, we'll get back to trains in just a moment. Meanwhile, I wanted to share with you a few tips on how to make your dream trip to Japan become a reality, even on a lower budget. Let's start by talking about flights. I can't stress enough how important it is, if you know the place that you want to be flying to, let's say Japan, to check search engines such as skyscanner.com or Google Flights for good deals. If you can save yourself £400 or $500 a person on flights, why not do it, right? That will give you some cash to get a lot accomplished during your time in Japan. So start looking at flights early to get an idea of the cost, then check frequently to see how prices change, and when you find the ones that you are happy with, well, book them. Now, before I talk about hotels specifically, I wanted to chat a bit about itinerary. When you travel a long way to your destination, like I did at the time from London to Tokyo, but all you have is 7 days in total, you have to be very smart about planning. Here's what I did. I got us this. This is a Japan Rail Pass, which you can get for various lengths of time. I got us a 7-day one. Now this pass isn't cheap, but with it, once you have it, you can take almost every train in the country to travel anywhere you want at no additional cost. To put things into perspective a little bit for you, if you decide to travel from Tokyo to Kyoto and back, those 2 train trips will cost you more than the pass itself. It's kind of a no-brainer. Now, a couple of things to note here. You need to be a foreign visitor to Japan in order to qualify for this pass. You need to purchase the pass before your trip to Japan, then exchange the voucher you'll be sent in the mail for this, the actual pass, once you arrive in Japan. I will put links and a few more details in the description below. And finally, I advise you to always reserve your seats ahead of your train rides, which will guarantee you a seat on the train at busy times. Seat reservations are free and can be done at most train stations that you will be departing from. Oh, and just one more thing, note which trains you will not be allowed on with this. There are not that many of them, so it won't be a problem, I assure you. But it's just good to know which ones they are. We were able to spend our 5 days, because realistically we spent 2 of the 7 days we were traveling, well, traveling to and from Japan in Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima, and Miyajima. Now, if this doesn't sound like a lot, I don't know what will. Of course, it wasn't exactly a relaxing trip, but then again, who wants those anyway? So now is an appropriate time to talk about hotels. As you may know from a couple of my previous travel videos, to book accommodation, I use the website called booking.com. Why? Well, the rates are good, the reviews and ratings are easy to find and see, communicating with the hotel you book is easily done via the app, but the very best part is that you can choose hotels that will offer free cancellation, often until the day before your arrival to that hotel. Now, I personally love this because it allows me to change my plans as I do more research and as I get closer to my departure date, sometimes even throughout the trip. So here's what we did in our 5 days. Day 1. We arrived in Tokyo Narita Airport in the morning, saw as much of Tokyo as possible, and then spent the night in a hotel there. On day 2, we traveled to Kyoto by one of the Shinkansen or bullet trains, which was an amazing experience in itself. We saw as much of Kyoto as possible and then spent the night in a really great hotel in Kyoto. On day 3, we traveled to Nara, where a beautiful Buddhist temple is located, and where, incidentally, wild deer are able to roam around happy and free, which is lovely. In the evening, we returned to Kyoto and spent the night in the same hotel. On day 4, we traveled to Hiroshima, and from there to Miyajima. Miyajima is another amazing place, a little island easily reachable from Hiroshima. Hiroshima, of course, deserves to be seen as well, for perhaps obvious reasons, so I would advise you to do it if you can. At the end of the day, we traveled back to Kyoto and spent another night in our hotel there. On day 5, we traveled back to Tokyo, again on a Shinkansen train, and even caught a glimpse of Mujisan, Mount Fuji, this time, which was so exciting. Once in Tokyo, we visited the city a bit more, and then we spent our final night in Japan in our Tokyo hotel. The following morning, we started our trip back to London. In a separate video, I will have to tell you a lot more about these wonderful places that I have just mentioned, but for right now, I just wanted to show you that A, it is fully possible to travel to Japan on a budget. Hotels and food are really not as expensive as you might think, so once your flights are booked, you're good. B, it's fully possible to travel to Japan even if you only have a few days at your disposal. Just remember to plan smartly and you'll be fine. And C, it is fully possible to have an incredible time there, which will put Japan into a very special place in your heart. So, I hope this will have inspired some of you to visit this wonderful country. If so, be sure to subscribe and watch out for my next video about Japan, where I will give you lots of ideas about what essential things you will have to see in each city during your trip, as well as lots of useful tips to keep you going while there. If you have any specific questions about Japan that you need answered, don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section below. Meanwhile, thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you've liked it and found it useful, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. どうもありがとうございますか